And we are here at the Pulling Each Other Along special edition. I'm bringing on Dave Clark and Dave Geis. You're coming on next. Let's see. Welcome, guys. We have the Pulling Each Other Along crew, but this week's going to be a little different. We're going to also bring in Todd Siven with the now Pushing Each Other Along show. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Very good. We're kind of all over the country here, just in this little block of four guys.
Nice.
We got Milwaukee with Dave Geis. We got Florida with Dave Clark. We got New York with myself, and Todd is in Massachusetts.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully I got that all right. Well, today's a special show, and we're kind of excited about it in a sad kind of way. We had the passing of Dick Hoyt, and but just about 2 weeks ago. And so this show is honoring the memory of Dick Hoyt. And for anybody in the athletic and the disability world, this man, really did something remarkable with him and his son. And he has inspired many. And so we're glad to be able to honor him. We're glad for his journey on this earth. And I'm glad for all the guys that are going to be here with us today. So, and also thank you, gentlemen. And we will have a live stream going. And if people want to ask questions in chat, we would love to have them interact with that as well. Hopefully all that works today on our Facebook and YouTube channels with the Pulling Each Other Along show. Anyway, so Todd, introduce how this came about.
What came about?
This whole show. Why are we doing this show?
Okay, well, everybody on the show, myself included, are connected with the Hoyts in some way, shape, or form. And my connection with Dick and Rick started about 9 years ago. I won't take up a lot of time, but they changed my life in a very different way than they changed many of the people's here. I did a Bleacher Report story with Dick about 9 years ago, and he was a local legend, and bigger than a local legend. He's from Massachusetts, but his story spread nationwide. And after doing the interview, Dick and his office manager, Kathy, invited me to a Legends Ball where there was a sports legend at every table. And my legend was Dick and Rick Hoyt. As many people know, Rick, Dick's son, is a nonverbal spastic quadriplegic with cerebral palsy. And through his method of speaking, he asked me to write their book. So I wrote one letter at a time with Rick. Took us about 3 years to write because, like I said, Rick is nonverbal. And bottom line, Dick and Rick opened me to the world of people with disabilities. I've since written 50 books, and it's all because they inspired me. They gave me the opportunity to write. And you'll hear on the show today, their star power is worldwide. When Dick passed on the 17th, I also run their website, and we had tens of thousands of hits from hundreds of countries around the world, all offering their condolences to the Hoyt family and to Kathy, who's not only the office manager, but his longtime girlfriend. And so that's all I'm going to say. But Dick and Rick have changed the world. And you'll hear this from many of our guests.
Yeah, I am sure we will. And our first guest we have is, I know, has been very instrumental in, Dick's story has been very instrumental in your life. And so, BJ Williams, tell us a little bit about yourself and what the Hoyts and what Dick and Rick Hoyt have meant to you.
Guys, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's my connection.
Keep going. So if you
can't hear you guys. I've been trying to connect and nothing will connect for my phone.
I'll text you a question. Todd, keep going with something else so we keep the show going.
Okay, so BJ's a member of Team Hoyt, New England, but he's also run with the Hoyt Marathon, the Hoyt Foundation Boston Marathon team for a number of years. And the Hoyt Foundation Marathon team is made up of runners from across the country. And they raise money in the Boston Marathon for the Hoyt Foundation. They raise a couple $100,000 every year, and it's a sight to be seen. It's almost, there's a few things that are famous about the Boston Marathon. There's the starting line, there's Heartbreak Hill, there's the finish line. Johnny Kelly, who was one of the oldest marathons to ever run it, Dave McGilvery, and the Hoyts. And so if you're wearing the Team Hoyt shirt from anywhere from Hopkinton to Heartbreak Hill to the finish line, people are screaming out to you because you represent two people who are so associated with the Boston Marathon.
So
and inclusion itself.
So hopefully we get BJ back. Not sure. Fortunately, we have some other great guests that are in the waiting lines. But Todd, if I think you understand what BJ is working on, and so let's just go ahead and give us a minute to explain what he is working on behalf of the Hoyts.
So BJ is, I call him an animal. I guess it would be called a Spartan. He is just a dedicated young man. You can see here he's running around Fenway Park. That was I'm not sure the exact name of it. It was a marathon around the inside of Fenway Park. So runners run around the Green Monster, in front of the Green Monster, around the outskirts of the outfield for 26.2 miles. In that picture, he's pushing a young girl named Jackie, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But BJ committed to running the World Marathon Challenge. This was before Dick's passing. BJ opted to do this, I'm going to say about a year ago, and he's training diligently to do it. The World Marathon Challenge is, get ready for this, 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. And it naturally needs to be a timed event, because not only does he have to travel from Africa to Antarctica to the United States to Europe, Asia, Africa, and whatever continent I just forgot, South America, but he has to take flights from each one to arrive there at the start of another marathon. So it is just a Spartan-like feat, and he's doing it in honor of Dick Hoyt. I would say Dick and Rick Hoyt. And his goal is to raise $100,000 for the Hoyt Foundation. So, I think Dick's passing gives him extra inspiration, but I don't know how you can get more inspiration than what he's already committed to with that athletic feat.
It is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, think of this. Dave Clark, 90 feet is a long way from first base to second, isn't it?
It sure as heck is when you're running with the crutches.
7 continents, 7 days.
That's amazing.
That is, yeah. So unthinkable.
So with Dave, there you are. A lot of the new audience that we're getting today won't know your story, but Dave had a 17-year career of playing in the minor leagues. But from his crutches, it's truly one of the most amazing stories. And I know, Dave, what was a typical run for you? 6 days a week. What did you run to put the marathon?
I ran 5 miles a day on my crutches,
So
13-minute miles. So I wasn't Mr. Speedy, but it certainly served a purpose for me. And, and then I ran sprints, my sprints, which probably a turtle could beat me, but, you do what you have to do. And obviously, Dick and Rick Hoyt took it a level further. So to do a friggin' marathon day after day after day for 7 straight days, that's gonna. I can't process that.
Is that something that's been done in the past, or is this something new? Or
no, it's I believe it's an annual event.
it is.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure that it's annual, but it's done frequently.
Wow.
Not by many.
No.
But yeah, it's I guess there's different levels of crazy. And for me, running a marathon would be crazy. And then the next guy does a triathlon, and the next guy does an ultra marathon or an ultra tri. One thing, getting back to Dick and Rick, and this tells you the type of duo that they are. They ran across the country. They ran from Santa Monica Pier in California, across the country, and they finished up in Fenway Park. And the amazing thing was, Dick was, I don't recall exactly how old he was, but he wasn't a spring chicken. And, Kathy Sullivan Boyer just said Dave McGilvery's run the World Marathon Challenge, so we can ask when he comes on as well.
Oh.
But the Hoyts ran across the country, and it was Dick's belief, even though people told them that they needed to rest in between, they couldn't run every day. Dick poo-pooed that, and he said that he needs to, the more he runs, the stronger he gets. So they ran across the country 3,600 or 3,200 some odd miles, and they ran through the Green Monster into Fenway Park. Now, when I say through the Green Monster, Dick Hoyt could probably run through the Green Monster, but that's not what it means. It means he ran through, and they gave him 5 minutes to speak to say that Fenway Park is handicap accessible. Now, that's another lie, because Fenway Park is not very accessible even to people without a disability, if you've ever sat in one of those seats in center field. But he gave his speech. They watched the game. The Red Sox won. And the next day, they ran a triathlon up in Fairleigh, Vermont. So, I mean, again, different levels of crazy.
Yeah.
But their level of crazy is about inclusion, and it's about the love of a father and a son. And, that's maybe the last thing I want to say, and we can cut to somebody else. I want people to think of this, even if they're not athletic, because why would my mother call now? When Rick was a teenager, there was a gentleman in the local college, Westfield State, who was in an accident, and he was a lacrosse player, and they were holding a 5-mile race in his honor. And so Rick went into his dad. Why does my mother continue to call? Rick went into his dad and said, "Dad, there's this 5-mile race. I'd like to run in it." Now, Dick was not a runner. He ran a few miles every week to keep himself in shape, but he was not a runner. And Rick didn't have a running chair. He had a Mulholland wheelchair, which you can see here. And Dick did something that, as a father, it means a lot to me. How many times does your son or your daughter ask you to do something, and your answer is, "You know what, kid, I'm watching the news. I'm busy. I'm not a runner. Go play with your mother or something." But Dick didn't say that. Dick said what every good father hopefully says, and that's, "Yes, you can. Yes, I can." And Those 3 words changed history, because instead of saying, "No, kid, you bother me," he said yes. And 1,100 races later, and duo teams all around the world, because of the fact that Dick said, "Yes, you can," to his son. I mean, it's mind-boggling what these 2 men have done to change the world as we know it.
So Todd, that's a great intro, and we're going to bring in another guest that's waiting off to the sideline. This is another just huge giant in the industry. He basically is a co-founder of Challenged Athletes that is just affecting many, many, many people. And I want to welcome to the show Bob Babbitt. Bob, welcome, and I'm going to put you on the hot spot over here. Thanks for joining us, and we want to get some words from you, because I know you had interactions with the Hoyts and were involved. What did that involvement look like with you?
I first met those guys back in 1988, the first time they came to the Ironman World Championship. It was interesting because I was staying on a ground floor condo, and the people upstairs were partying like all night. And I'm like, who the hell's upstairs? And I go upstairs, and it's Dick and Rick. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? You forget, because people think of Rick as like some 12-year-old or something. But Rick was, in his 20s and 30s. He was an adult. And he and Dick would have a lot of fun. So watching them do the Ironman, and what people forget, the bike that they used back then, with Dick and Rick and this monstrosity of a bike where he had Rick on the handlebars, Dick was riding with 365 pounds when he headed up towards Hawi. And one of my favorite stories is Dick told me that, they're covering them for NBC. And as they're coming down from Hawi, the helicopter is coming down really low, just as Dick is giving Rick something to drink. And then they both got showered with Gatorade all over them for the rest of the freaking bike ride. The thing that always impressed me about Dick and Rick especially was when you think about the Ironman, you think about Jan Frodeno or Dave Scott or Mark Allen, the average person really can't relate to those freaks of nature who have a VO2 max that's off the charts and have a heart rate of 12. But what a father would do for his son is something that is universal, which is why that story, when it went on NBC, it was so huge, because everybody could relate. What would you do for your son? And to me, that's what was so important. One year, my background is Challenge Athletes Foundation. We started that 27 years ago. And today, we just sent out our 2021 grants. We just sent out today, actually, $5.1 million, 3,038 grants to athletes in 49 states and 43 countries around the world. And that's sort of a testament to what Dick and Rick stood for. 94 different sports we sent out grants for. And who would have ever thought that Rick Hoyt would look at himself as an athlete? But Dick, as a father, was able to say, whatever he wants to do, I'm going to make it happen. We're going to adapt whatever equipment it is to make sure that Rick understands how important sport is for everybody. So Dick and Rick came out to our San Diego Triathlon Challenge, our CAF event that we do every October. That we started our foundation for another triathlete by the name of Jim McLaren, who was an amputee, became a quadriplegic, and we decided we need to do something for Jimmy to give him independence. And that meant putting on a little triathlon, trying to raise $25,000, get him a van with hand controls to give him independence. And so that was when we created that and we raised $49,000 and thought our job was done, then we found out, and this is something that affects every adaptive athlete out there, if you get injured, your health insurance covers a walking around leg or an everyday wheelchair. Nothing to do with sport is covered by insurance, because insurance companies consider sport a quote unquote luxury item. So to support our event, Dick and Rick came out to do our San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and they brought their inflatable boat to do the race. One problem, we're out there at 5:30 in the morning. Dick forgot the valves for the boat. So there was no way to put air into his boat. So here we are knocking on people's doors down by La Jolla Cove at 5:30 in the morning, seeing someone has a boat we can use that Dick can haul across La Jolla Cove and swim 1.2 miles with it. We found like a little fishing trawler, and Dick was like, take the motor off it. I'm good. And next thing you know, there's Dick with Rick in the back, strapped in, swimming in 8-foot swells out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in a fishing trawler, just because he's Dick Hoyt. And one of the stories I love to tell about Dick is when he first wanted to do the Boston Marathon, it's not like he was welcome with open arms. He went and wanted to run Boston, and they didn't want him. They basically said, if you want to qualify for Boston, you have to qualify with the time Rick would run. Rick's in his 20s. Dick was in his late 40s. So what'd they do? They go to Marine Corps Marathon, run a 2:45 marathon, qualify with the time Rick needed, then go to Boston, and now there's a statue of them on the course from a group that didn't even want him in the race. Dick changed perceptions of what a father would do for his son, but more importantly, what anybody would do for sport, what people would do to stay in a game of life through sport. And nobody exemplifies that more than Dick and Rick Hoyt. And Dick is, we just interviewed him at Boston Marathon 2019. Always one of my favorite conversations, because Dick, he acted surprised anytime someone came up to him. Anytime someone came up to him and wanted an autograph or a photo, he acted like he was surprised. He didn't quite understand what a legend he was. And I think that everybody knew what type of outpouring there would be when Dick passed away, just because he was one of those icons that we will never, ever forget.
Yeah, Bob. And when you say he ran a 2:45,
yeah, pushing. Right.
Yeah, it's like I didn't realize until actually just this week putting the show together how fast he did his marathons pushing people. And I have a running background. I understand even the average person breaking 3 hours is really respectable. But doing it pushing someone is beyond remarkable, actually.
Yeah, and everybody was concerned about him making the cutoff times at Kona, because you have to finish that bike ride by 5:30 in the afternoon, and you've got to finish the race by midnight. It was never a problem. Dick was so strong. Once he got into that run, he was flying by people. So it was, and watching Rick at the finish and how excited he was, the champagne. Who will ever forget that image of the champagne spraying with Dick and Rick crossing that finish line, changing perceptions, changing lives? That was Dick Hoyt.
Yeah, just absolutely really mind-boggling, and especially when you talk about he wasn't even really a runner going into this. Just the stars had to align, and a lot of it is just heart, and so that's just wonderful. Any other questions, Dave? I know you can relate to not being wanted, being a professional baseball that played on crutches, and I saw you shaking your head. And I know you've got 1,000 stories like that. And
one of them that quickly popped into my mind when Bob was talking about Dick and Rick not being wanted at the Boston Marathon was my own experience of trying to enter Ithaca College as a phys ed major with crutches and braces and having had polio and being told that I was unemployable. And then some 20 years later, 25 years later, they're calling me back and telling me I've been inducted into their Hall of Fame. So it's it takes a very strong mind to do what, and I've always said that the muscle between your ears is more important than any other muscle in your body. And when Dick and Rick obviously teamed together, it took some major mental powers to accomplish what they did. And you and I were talking about it this week, Doug, that running a marathon, because I remember going, they ran it in under 3 hours. I said, he ran it alone then. Then you said, no, he pushed Rick. And I said, oh my guys, I can't believe that. So again, just a tremendous and Todd, you were talking about dads that that didn't say yes. I had a father that said yes, and I want to think that I'm a father that says yes, maybe to a fault.
Okay.
But obviously there's a lot of love there, and a lot of mental discipline as well to accomplish what they did.
Hey, Dave, I just wanted to tell you that right now we have a young man trying to make his high school baseball team in Indiana who's a quadruple amputee, missing both hands and both legs below the knee, named Landis Sims. And you'll be seeing something, there's being a movie made about him right now, but that's Dick and Rick Hoyt led to all these athletes changing perceptions and challenging boundaries, just like you did back then with baseball as well.
Yeah. And unfortunately, guys like Dave Clark and Dick Hoyt hit that brick wall of people saying, no, we don't want you. And now obviously that's changed a lot. Well, I've got another, I would say legend, another just giant in the industry. Todd, you got something? Are you
You got to go to the bathroom.
I have Todd's muted. That's terrible. Todd, we had you muted.
Yeah, we can't let Bob go without bringing this to the forefront either. There are two duo teams in the history of Kona Ironman who completed the race, 140.6 miles. If you've never seen Bob's interviews from Kona, whether you're a fan of Ironman or not, and I don't know who wouldn't be, but the interviews are just incredible. There's banter back and forth. Bob is brings it to life. But Bob has interviewed both duo teams who finished Kona World Championships. And those two duo teams are, Bob?
Well, the Pease brothers and the Hoyts.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I know you've interviewed Team Liza as well, who is, from the same genre, and the Hoyts and you and the Pease brothers and Team Liza, of course, are all in our book that's coming out. And so, I can't believe I'm on the same stage. And I thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Sure. Team Liza missed the bike cutoff time by just a couple minutes in Kona, but they'll get it. Bethel, they'll get it next time. Beth and Liza.
And Bob, you're welcome to hang out with us if you want, but you're also welcome to go. But I've got another, again, what I would say, pretty big monster in the sport of distance running, and we're going to bring him on the show. Todd, do you want to kind of introduce Dave a little bit here?
I do. Dave McGilvery is the race director of a fairly big race around Boston. Usually happens on Patriots Day. Now, who the heck knows when it's going to happen? But Dave McGilvery is the race director of the Boston Marathon. And he, in addition to running that race, and by running, I mean operating it, he also runs the race every year. He, after everybody finishes and he orchestrates the race, Dave starts in Hopkinton at about, I think 7 o'clock at night, Dave, you can correct us, and runs the full 26.2 and has done that, I'm going to say 1 million years in a row.
47?
Oh, I think we lost him. So hopefully he comes back.
I'll keep on watching.
He's probably running.
He got tired of you, Todd.
He's the first person, first male. Usually it's women.
Yeah, we understand that. Well, Bob, hopefully he joins us again. I think we're going to bring him in. That wasn't too long. We're going to put you on the hot seat. And Dave, you want to do a quick sound check? I got too many Daves. We got 3 Daves on this show right now. And there's another Dave in the bullpen.
So am I on, Dave McGilvery?
Yes, you are.
You are.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot, especially given the subject. However, for Babbitt, full transparency, I didn't know that your story about Dick not being wanted in his first Boston Marathon, but I wasn't the race director then. So I want to make that clear because he would have been more than welcome if I was at the helm at the time.
Right. Well, and Dave, you sent me probably the most pictures of everybody. What's this picture about?
Oh, that's nice. All right. Well, I'll bring you through very quickly my journey with the Hoyt. So I was running in a road race on Cape Cod, the Falmouth Road Race, and I was a pretty good runner at the time. And all of a sudden, this gentleman pulls up next to me, pushing a wheelchair with a young boy in it, and I was like, "What is this?" And I never saw anything quite like that. And at first, I was surprised and shocked. Second, I was inspired. But thirdly, I was challenged. I was like, no way is this guy going to beat me pushing a wheelchair. And he did. And crossed the finish line. And I had to hunt him down to find out what this was all about. And I did. And we talked. And I asked him right there on the spot, well, I put on a lot of races in New England, and a lot of them are triathlons. Would you ever consider doing a triathlon? He said, yeah, of course, but only with Rick. And I looked at him, how are you going to do that? He said, I don't know, but you and I are going to figure that out. Okay. So we did. And about 8 months later, he did my Bay State triathlon in Medford, Mass. And then about a couple of months after that, Dick called me up and he said, Rick has a question to ask you. I said, what's that? He says, he wants to do the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. I said, Dick, that's like going from Little League to the big leagues. I mean, that's a pretty big jump. I said, what about you? Do you want to do it? He said, Rick wants to do it. I said, I know Rick wants to do it, but what about you? He said, Rick wants to do it. I said, okay, I get it. So I called up Valerie Silk, who was the race director at the time. And to my surprise, somewhat, I said, this would mean a lot. I had done the race 2 or 3 times already myself. So I was very friendly with Valerie, and she trusted my judgment to let him in. And so we all went over to Hawaii together to do their first Ironman. But as the story goes, unfortunately, they didn't finish their first Ironman. Dick didn't make the swim cutoff. And I think it was 2 hours 30 or 2:15 at the time. And he didn't make the swim cutoff. So they got pulled from the event. And so I thought that's the end of their triathlon career. And about 2 months later, Dick calls me again. He says, Rick has another question for you. I said, what's that? He says, he wants to go back to Hawaii. Can you get us in again?
Of course he does.
I said, how am I going to get him back in again? I said, well, I'll give it a try. I tried. They let him in. They finished. The rest is history. They got inducted into the Ironman Triathlon Hall of Fame. I inducted them into the USA Triathlon Hall of Fame a couple of years ago in Arizona. And then I became their manager for about 10 years, helping them get sponsorship, helping them get into events. And then I get a call from Dick again. He says, Rick has another question for you. I said, what's with all these questions from Rick? All right, what's that? He goes, he wants to run across the country like you did. I said, he wants to run across the United States? He goes, well, yeah, run and bike across the United States. I said, okay. And I said, what do you want me to do? He said, we want you to manage the whole thing. Chart out the course and manage the whole thing. Okay, and I did. They were about a week out from the finish. I got another call from Dick. He says, Rick has another question for you. So what's that? He wants to finish in Fenway Park, like you finished in Fenway Park in 1978. And I was like, wait a minute. I was the only one to ever run inside Fenway Park in front of 30,000 people. That was kind of sacred for me. I said, but it's the Hoyts. Of course. I made a call to the Red Sox. Boom. They ran into Fenway Park for the finish. And the list goes on and on and on. I held a break tape for them at the finish line of the Boston Marathon in 2006. And then the last story is I run my age on my birthday every year. When I was 12, I ran 12 and 13, 13. So when I turned 60, the Hoyts came to my house and they ran with me, not all 60, but they ran a lot of my miles with me. And at the end of the run, they gave me a birthday gift. And it was a gift certificate. And I was like, what the heck is this? And I opened it up, and it was a gift certificate for me to push Rick in a road race. And at that time, no one else had pushed Rick other than Dick. I'm like, how can I do this? And I decided, okay, this is the best gift I could have ever gotten from anyone, ever. And I decided to push Rick in a 10K that finished at Gillette Stadium at the 50-yard line. And the interesting thing was I've known the Hoyts for 40 years and done all this with them. And here I was with Rick for the first time in my life, alone with Rick, alone. And I was like stunned. I was like, what do I say? And what do I do? And the gun fires and I stopped pushing him. And I said, just talk about the past. So I went down the list and Rick and I had a blast. He was laughing and screaming and doing his thing. And we crossed the finish line at the 50-yard line. And he was so excited. And, that had to be one of the highlights of my athletic career. I mean, Kathy said I did the World Marathon Challenge. I did the 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. And I actually put on the Fenway Park Marathon that BJ ran in, but Rick ran in too with Brian Lyons pushing him. So Rick Hoyt ran the Fenway Park Marathon, 113 laps around the warning track at Fenway Park. Rick did that too. So the last story is this. I was directing a triathlon on Cape Cod, and I put Dick and Rick in the water first, and it was bad weather. The conditions were really choppy, really tough, and Dick is just working, cutting through the waves and cutting through the chop. And then I send on all the other swimmers, and all of a sudden I turned away, then I turned back and I look up. There's like 10 guys hanging on the dinghy on Rick's boat, but dear life. And Dick is just swimming along, having no idea that he's hauling 10 other people with him. And it just kind of accentuated how tough this guy was, how bullheaded he was. He didn't care. I'm finishing the swim, whether I'm taking half the field with Rick and I or not. And at the end of the day, his athleticism was off the charts. But what was the greatest tribute to Dick was the fact that when he did the Boston Marathon and he did other events, he wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it for a greater purpose. And that set the bar. Philanthropy entered the sport. When he started pushing Rick, people started believing in themselves. The walls of intimidation crumbled. He opened up a whole new world to allow people with disabilities to participate in endurance sports. And without Dick and Rick Hoyt, I don't know that we would ever be there today. So that sector of society obviously owes him a debt of gratitude, and that outpouring of love has shown itself over the last couple of weeks.
That's some pretty great stories there, Dave, and and just the legacy that you have, even with the Boston Marathon. I live in Corning, New York. I don't know if you know that, and we have the Wine Glass Marathon. And
I ran in it 2 years ago. Yeah.
One of the reasons that the people come to the Wine Glass Marathon is it's a great qualifier for the Boston, and that's their goals all the time. And and you have the creme de la creme. You have the masters of marathons in the Boston Marathon, and obviously it's just a wonderful thing that you have a connection with the man of the hour right now, which is Dick Hoyt. And so thank you for coming on. And Todd, you want to have any more questions here? Any more thoughts that you want before?
Wow. Am I muted?
You know what? I actually am letting you speak this time.
I don't know that I have another question.
I do, Doug.
I've known Dave for a number of years, and I could listen to him talk all day. The beauty is Dave can talk all day.
There you go. We didn't have to say a thing. That's what we like. We just set it on the tee, and there it goes. Dave Clark, since we have so many Daves, Dave Clark, you said you had a question or a story.
I think a lot of the people probably listening and watching here, myself included, I want to ask the question: how old was Dick when this all came to be? When this started, how old was Dick?
I believe he was in his 40s. So he's been doing this for 40 years, and he was 80 when he passed away a few weeks ago. So yeah. And what's the funeral is April 17th, which would have been the weekend of the Boston Marathon this year. And on Patriots Day, when we historically have the marathon, we at the BAA are implementing a new event called the Patriots Day Mile. And a lot of people are signing up just to run a mile, just to get out there. And unfortunately, where Rick is now, he's not able to leave that facility for very long, only a couple hours, and then he has to be back. So any race that he would be able to participate in, it would have to be right there in that area. And as I understand it, Dick's grandson might be pushing him in the Patriots Day Mile on Patriots Day in memory of Dick right there at the facility. So I think that's pretty amazing that Rick will be paying tribute to his own dad by running in an event on Patriots Day.
Great. Just to remind everybody, this is a special edition of the Pulling Each Other Along show called the Pushing Each Other Along show because of Dick Hoyt passing just a couple of weeks ago. We were honoring him with some wonderful people on this particular show, and we're very, very grateful for really pulling this together very last minute. Todd, thank you for that. So we kind of have two more legends to throw into the loop here. We have Brent and Kyle Pease. So I'm pulling them in. Actually, I hit the wrong button here. And let me see, Brent and Kyle Pease. I'm going to put you guys on the hot spot, or at least one of you. There's Kyle, and no, let's see, we're there. There's Brent. I got to find you on here. Hey guys, can you hear me? Can we do a quick video check?
Hello.
So we've got. Let me go to a bunch of boxes here. Maybe that'll work better for this particular set. So Brent and Kyle, I know you have connection with Dick and Rick Hoyt. Give us. Let's start with Brent. Why don't you give us a shout out and let us know your involvement with the Hoyts.
Well, what's interesting is when the Hoyts were doing this, there wasn't the social media, firestorm or just the world that we all live in today. And so Kyle and I had seen the story as young kids, but we were, chasing baseballs and footballs, and it hit, but it didn't stick. And when I started getting into endurance sports in 2008 and 2009, eventually finishing my first Ironman, Kyle came to watch that. And, what he said after that race was, well, can people in wheelchairs do this? And my immediate response was yes. And it was interesting listening to Dave McGilvery's story, because we actually, as soon as we then got home, we start looking, and it was like, oh, this is the story. This is the father-son. We've seen this. And so we just reached out because we didn't know how to do a triathlon. We really didn't know how they would do it. But here were all these videos. Kyle started watching every YouTube video that he could find on the Hoyts. And Kathy and everybody at Team Hoyt sent us this really lengthy email with everything that we might need to know, where to find equipment. And that really just kind of kicked off the journey for us. And so we became just plugged into that community, and, we're re-inspired by what the Hoyts had accomplished. And when we would, call race directors locally here in Atlanta, we would say, well, it's kind of like the Hoyts. And, that became the way into those conversations. So as Bob Babbitt was mentioning, those barriers that have been broken down, or the world that we all live in now, is something that Dick and Rick have created for all of us. So it was fun finding that story. And now you get on social media and you see these stories, these athletes globally that are following in those legendary footsteps that have blazed a fiery path for all of us.
Right, and we just got Kathy has given us some information about the first race was 1977, and Dick was 37 years old. And again, to run, I think that was a 5K race, if I'm not mistaken. And Todd, you can tell me, was that
5 miles?
5 mile race?
5 mile.
And obviously a lot shorter than a marathon, but little steps to the big goal, right, Dave Clark?
Absolutely.
So there we have it. And then I think she say that, the first race was a 5 miler in Westfield. So thanks for that information, Kathy. And again, sorry for the loss. I know it's a great memory to talk about, Dick, but it's also, it's extremely sad when somebody leaves this earth that you're so close with. So Brent, let's bring in your brother here. At least give us a hi and tell us your thoughts about Dick Hoyt.
Oh man, Dick Hoyt was a trailblazer. When I had the privilege of meeting Dick in 2019 when Brett and I did the Falmouth Marathon, and when I met him, it was like a dream come true. It was really unbelievable to hear a legend talk about the sport. It was really stood out to me was when I started sharing with Mr. Hoyt my Kona experience. And all of a sudden he started crying. And it caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it. But after I left that conversation, Brett kind of reminded me, you were like, Kyle, you were speaking your experience and everything you were saying. Dick was thinking about Rick. So he was so appreciative of your words because he felt Rick experience through your words as well. So it was a moment that I will never forget for the rest of my life.
That's great. And I have this picture of you and your brother meeting Dick Hoyt. Where was this picture taken? Can one of you tell me where that picture was taken?
So that was at the Falmouth Road Race Expo. And it always worked out against Kyle. I met the Hoyts for the first time in 2013, and Kyle was actually sick in the hospital after his first Ironman. My mom will not admit that I put Kyle in the hospital from his first Ironman, but I put Kyle in the hospital from his first Ironman. So he missed out on these experiences where I got to meet Todd for the first time and the Hoyts for the first time. And it happened like 2 or 3 times like this. So finally in 2019, we were both so excited to be there and to just get a chance to take pictures and to meet everybody, to meet Kathy, and just be able to experience some of these things. When you read these stories and you hear these stories, I love hearing Bob's stories about Kona, and just everything they've done is so special to all of us. And to just be in the presence of somebody that special. What really resonates now that I didn't realize was happening in 2019 when Kyle was getting to meet him was that, we were speaking to somebody who had created these experiences for so many of us. And that is pretty powerful. And seeing that come out now tonight on this show, all over social media, the outpouring of people saying that, the Hoyts did this for me, or they experienced this because of Rick and Dick Hoyt. It really, truly is special. So that was a wonderful experience for Kyle to finally get to meet them.
Yeah, I have to say, looking at the cat, thank you, Kathy, for saying that as well. I'll never forget when we told Todd that we got into Kona. one of the first people that called us was Dick Hoyt. And he and I called him, and Kathy picked up the phone, and I said, "Is Mr. Hoyt available?" And she said, "Who is this?" And I said, "It's Kyle Pease." And she said, "Well, he's cooking. Give me 1 second." And then he kindly interrupted his meal preparation to talk to me. And it was like I was meeting one of my heroes. You know, when I asked Brett in 2010, could I do an Ironman, the first thing I YouTube was the horse and the the I Can Only Imagine video that I watch all the time. You know, it's just it's amazing to see what they have done, not only for themselves, but for all of us, for every disabled person. You know, we lost a warrior, we lost a man that did so much for inclusion. It's a put. He really gave me a break, you know, the opportunity to explore something that we absolutely love now. So, you know, it's an honor, you know, when people don't know who the Beach Brothers are, and they're like, "Oh, look, there's Dick and Rick out there." You know, it's an honor to be among legends. It's truly amazing.
Now, you two have gone on to do take this another step with the Kyle Pease Foundation. I assume all of this was, you know, in essence, motivated by your experience of meeting and finding out about Dick Hoyt. So what are you guys doing now? I know you're in Atlanta, and I know we have you coming on the show on Thursday, so we're going to get a little more in depth on this on Thursday at the Pulling Each Other Along show. But tell the folks that are listening now, what has Dick Hoyt inspired the Kyle and Brent Pease to do with your foundation?
Well, we didn't make the quick leap from sprint triathlon to Kona. So we we laid out a plan that we thought it would take us a couple of years. And so we got to our very first triathlon. It was the St. Anthony's Triathlon in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a huge race. And it was this incredibly eye-opening experience for us as a family, for Kyle to feel inclusion in sports. You know, for us growing up, Kyle was a diehard everything. Unfortunately, we were not Boston fans for all of you Boston folks. We were the Braves and the Falcons, and so we've had a tough childhood, as you can imagine. But we always had to say wheelchair baseball or wheelchair soccer, all these things that we did for Kyle. And he wanted to just be like everybody else. He wanted to be treated like everybody else, and that is what the Hoyts created. And so when we did that first triathlon, it was this truly inclusive experience for Kyle. He finished his first triathlon, and as soon as he finished, almost instantly, he said, "Other people need to experience this with us." And in that instant, the Kyle Pease Foundation was born. So, we serve people with disabilities here in Atlanta, everything from 5K to Hawaii. We've got some people threatening to jump out of airplanes, but Kyle and I are staying grounded. And so we're proud to be able to spread the message of inclusion and share those experiences with so many wonderful people. And I do want to just add one story, because I think it speaks to what the Hoyts have done for so many, and what organizations like the Kyle Pease Foundation or Athletes Serving Athletes, My Team Triumph, some of these organizations around Team Hoyt. One of the athletes that races with us here in Atlanta sent Kyle a text the night before Kona, and it said, when you're in the World Championships, we're all in the World Championships. And so when you think about Dick Hoyt, not being with us for this year's Boston Marathon or this year's Kona, when we're all in Kona, we're there because of Dick Hoyt, and we're all there together with him. So that legacy lives on in organizations like ours, and creating fully inclusive experiences for athletes with disabilities.
And that's really what it's about right now. Dave Clark, you got a Anything else for the Peases? I know we're going to be able to ask them some more questions on Thursday night at 7:30.
Well, actually,
show.
You know, in this, I'm sitting here thinking, listening to all these stories, and in my genre, which is baseball, Dick and Rick Hoyt, in a way, were the Jackie Robinsons of that of the genre we're speaking about tonight. They opened up doors for who was to follow Rick and Dick Hoyt, and so that's what I take away from this is that Jackie opened it up in baseball, and Dick and Rick Hoyt opened it up here in this genre for people to follow along. And look what's happened today in the baseball world. You don't take a second look at an African American player today, so that's my take. I kind of think Dick and Rick opened the doors for people to follow along.
Right.
Good point, Dick.
So thank you, Dave. I think that's, I know we had an interesting meeting with some professional baseball players, and Dave Clark kind of shared his story, that his story was kind of like the minor league for disabilities, the minor league Jackie Robinson. And it really took a lot of heads when Dave Clark said that about his experience, because, he wasn't wanted, and he was certainly a trailblazer. So I know you can relate to that a lot. So thank you for giving that. So we're going to bring somebody else in right now to this crowded field, and I'm going to bring Dave Geis in because we just want all the Daves that we can get into the show. And we also are bringing Mr. Donut Man himself. Where are you? Dave, there you are on my screen. I'm trying to find you here. Welcome to the show. I know Dave Clark and I were on your show, Donuts with Dave or whatever it is, and Dave Clark loves donuts, and so I reached out to you. And
thanks for the gift card, Dave.
And maybe I should pull Todd off of mute and let Todd introduce you first, because he knows you the best. Todd, go ahead. I pulled you off mute again.
Dave Slumkowski. He has the honor of being on the show. He has the longest last name of any of the Daves. Dave's going to share his story, but to me, it's one of the most uplifting stories because, like me, Dave doesn't have a disability member or a disabled member of his family. And because of what Dick and Rick have done, that's not a prerequisite. You don't have to have a disabled member of your family to be involved in this sport. Before I jump to Dave, one thing that keeps coming into my head, and this is pertinent because it does tie in with Dave's story. Dick Hoyt and Rick and Kathy have gotten emails over the years, thousands and thousands of emails. And I have to say, Kathy answers every single one, and Dick reads every single one. But what they did is gave people hope, not only with disabilities, but people with other challenges. The number of letters they get from alcoholics, from drug users, from parents going through divorce, from people who are going to commit suicide, and hear that's the Hoyt story and the love that emanates from what they did and made decisions to change their life for the better because of what Dick and Rick did. And that jumps right in with Dave, who's not embarrassed or not shy about telling his story, because it's very pertinent to the lesson that I just told. So with no further ado, one of the greatest people on the planet, and I mean that, Dave Slumkowski.
Welcome, Dave. Dave with Donuts, you're welcome. You have the floor. Are you on mute? Check your mute bar.
Check, check.
Yeah, you're good now.
Hello, everybody. It's an absolute honor for me to be here. I'll try to be brief. I I grew up very blessed. I had great parents. I played a lot of sports. I was fortunate to go to a really great high school by the name of DeMatha Catholic High School in outside Washington, D.C. It's in Hyattsville, Maryland. For those that know me, know I'm vertically challenged. I have a little bit of a Napoleon complex, maybe a big Napoleon complex, maybe like some of the other Daves on this broadcast. But in any case, I realized soon that I wasn't going to play football or baseball, the traditional sports I grew up with. So the wrestling coach tracked me down. I started playing this crazy sport called lacrosse, which I'd never heard of. It was not big in the DC area at the time. I was fortunate enough to play in college at a Division III level for a great coach with Corning connections by the name of Terry Corcoran, and then got into the working world. And the trappings of life took hold. And what I didn't realize for a lot of years is that I was trying to get through life with untreated alcoholism and some other addictions. And it came to a head, I guess, in the early 2000s, where I was going through a divorce. I did the horrible, one of the worst things I've ever done in my life is to sit down my two daughters and say, Mommy and Dad, you're getting divorced. And as you can only imagine from that setup, things were not going well. What I'd hated looking at the guy in the mirror. And as I'm on the couch one day, I'm in early sobriety, I'm starting to turn things around, I see the Hoyt story. And I have to tell you, it was like I got struck by lightning. My heart wanted to explode with just the power of that story. So, and at the time I made a commitment to run the Baltimore Marathon because I knew by just making that commitment, the discipline it would take would have positive effects in other areas of my life. At the time, it's a dream come true for a lot of reasons to be here. One of which is I watched a documentary by Bob Babbitt in the Challenge Athletes Foundation about Jim McLaren, about Emmanuel Yaboha. I'm floored. This is unbelievable. This is my new path in life. I have to find a Rick Hoyt. As Todd mentioned, I'm very blessed. I'd never really had exposure to anyone with a significant disability in my life. So I started emailing people. I started emailing Kathy. Kathy, my heart is with you. I can't even imagine the pain you're going through right now. Todd's right. She answers every email for the past 13 years I've sent her. And just asked the question, who's doing this in Baltimore, Maryland? And about a year and a half, I couldn't find anybody doing it. I couldn't find anybody doing it really nationwide. It was Trey White down in Virginia Beach, Team Hoyt. Mark Hollis up in Canada was running with his daughter, Amanda. But there were, at the time, at least that I found, there was no real organized organizations providing that experience. So I got sick and tired of telling everyone what a great idea it was. I approached a school in Baltimore City by the name of the William S. Bear School, showed them the 5-minute YouTube Hoyt clip that's got a trillion views, and asked a simple question, who's interested in doing this? You think any of your students would want to race? And the answer was, David, we have 200. When do you want to start? So that was about 13 years ago. We've evolved into 8 communities throughout the Baltimore region. We've served up to 200 athletes with individuals living with disabilities. We have about 750 volunteers a year. Each of our athletes with disability has 28 unique interactions with a training or a race. And we calculated that every year we stoke about 45,000 volunteer hours of just within our organization. So it's been really beautiful over the last 13 years to see other organizations, Ainsley's Angels, Team Hoyt, My Team Triumph, the Peace Brothers, and there's probably 500 of them throughout the world right now because of the Hoyts and their inspiration.
Great. And that's it's amazing how one person, and really two people in this case, Rick and Dick Hoyt, have inspired and changed so many lives. And Dave, obviously yours is one of those. So, I look at it from another perspective because, I was not like you and Todd. I was thrust into the disability world, having a boy, 22 years ago, or almost 22 years ago, born with neither arm when I was still living in Atlanta. And all of a sudden, here you have 4 children, and then you have a little boy that's 2 pounds, 13 ounces, and his arms weren't developed, and your life changes. And I was really fortunate to find a Dave Clark when Gideon was just a baby that could give me insight of, just because you have a disability doesn't mean you don't have success. And these trailblazers like the Dave Clarks and like the Dick and Rick Hoyts and even you guys. I mean, we're still so young. Bob Babbitt and what you've done with the challenged athletes is just really just remarkable, and it's just larger than life. And it's people like Dick Hoyt that have just ignited a great passion in people, give people a purpose, and including people, which is what pulling each other along to me is a big part. And in this case, pushing and pulling, because Dick did both. He pulled them in the water and he pushed them on the land, I guess.
Yep.
One comment on that, though. Rick pulled Dick along as well.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, I can speak for the volunteers out there that I'm the one with the significant challenge. It's not like we have 200 athletes with disabilities we work with. I tell the athletes with disabilities and their parents every time I see them, you have no idea the positive effect you're having on the volunteers, so to speak. People like me, my disability might not be visible, but there's a lot of brokenness in everyone's community. And when we come together as these racing teams, it just has it's a love bomb that goes off. And whatever you're going through, life's full of ups and downs. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. But when I go to one of our trainings, I get perspective. I get inspiration. And what I'll end with this, that it's amazing to see this, duo or athlete assistant racing that it really has exploded over the last 13, 14 years. But I think what their inspiration transcends the running world. It transcends the triathlon community. I have their picture that Dick and Rick and Kathy sent me 13 years ago above my head. Yes, you can. And even in our little, area of the country, in the Baltimore region, how many people see our teams? We don't do a race where I don't get emails saying, hey, I just want to let you know, I saw your team's getting ready, and it put me in tears. And it inspired me to do this, and we all have a story. We all have a circle of influence that we can make a difference. And it might not be running. You don't have to be Dick Hoyt, but everyone can make a difference. And that is what I think the beauty of the Hoyt's legacy means to me. And we're going to fight like hell to keep it going. So thank you for letting me be part of this group.
I get to want to follow up on that. I think what they built is hope, and we don't have that anymore. You look all around the world and see what's going on and all that, but then you're reminded of hope and the human spirit that perseveres. And I think that's a legacy that I will always remember about the Hoyts. Is their tenacious effort to persevere, regardless of the challenge, regardless of the obstacle. They wanted to prove that yes, they can. And by God, they sure did.
They sure did. Well said, Kyle.
Well, you're doing it.
Well said. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up, but I put something together that was sent to me literally just today, and I had all sorts of obstacles to getting this put together. And then we'll say goodbye after this. But this is a poem by Laura Chagnon, and Laura is a part of our Pulling Each Other Along book, and her longtime friend Tom has been. They've been pulling each other along in amazing ways. And Tom sent this to me today, and I'm just I had already pre-recorded it. And then we'll come back and say our goodbyes and wrap this show up. Two Angels by Laura Chagnon. This poem is about two angels, a father and a son, whose hearts are filled with joy, especially on a run. Rick's right arm flailing wild, an excited boyish smile. He is paving the way, mile after mile. In long-distance races, they so happily endure, this father and son duo, their hearts so very pure. God is watching you both in his kingdom from above, protecting you with grace and much devoted love. Dick and Ricky Hoyt, you are the greatest team. Your souls are like the sun, two radiant golden beams. And there you have it.
That was very good.
So thank you guys. Bob, Dave was on. I can just say it, thanks to all the Daves. A lot of Daves. Dave Geis, I put him in the background because we had so many people up on the screen, and we just appreciate you all being here. I don't know what just happened to Todd, but he was a big part of putting this together. And and Dave, there's the other Dave. A bunch of people just went off, but and then Todd, there he's back. So let's say, and Dave, and even Dave hung in with us. He's back, and Brent. We'll just put everybody up on. Let me get the other Dave. Thanks for now. We really do look like the Brady Bunch.
Wow.
So we can say the Brady Bunch, but this has been the Hoyt Bunch today, and we are grateful that Dick Hoyt pushed so many along, and so just blessings to the family, blessings to all you guys that have been a part of this, and and thank you for being a part of the show. We just really appreciate it. And I'm going to end with pushing this back up here and just playing some music and saying goodbye.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, you can.
Good night, everyone.